Hello, everyone. Thank you. If you could please find your seats, we'll begin. It is my great pleasure to introduce Jaime Flores today. He's been a friend of mine. I met him 5 years ago where we were both working at the foundation. And now Jaime is the IT coordinator here at the Oak Grove School. And he will be giving his presentation entitled Exploring the Teachings at Oak Grove School. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So I'm usually working on the back end, making sure that everything works, but today I have the task of giving you a presentation. It's a report on the exploration into the teachings that takes place here at the school. And I want to acknowledge the school and the head of school, Jody, for having us here today, and the KFA for organizing this event. I know that there are many people online, and this is just showing that the teachings are relevant and they will be relevant in the future. So it's a great joy for me to express my understanding of the teachings and also express what we've been doing here at the school with the children, with the parents and teachers. So in order to help our parents, students, and teachers work together as a family unit, the school offers different programs and activities to foster awareness and the awakening of intelligence. Parent education events are led by teachers as well as outside professionals, covering topics like growth mindset, social media wellness, college readiness, inquiry-based dialogue, diversity and equity, teen sexuality, and more. The program emphasizes building relationships and support networks among parents, teachers, and community members. We also have the pastoral care program that is designed especially to offer support for students and staff so that each is able to show up intentionally and engage authentically, generating a sense of belonging and community. And during the last few years, we've had many things happening globally that has caused conflict, pain, suffering, we all know. And this is a new role or new position that opened up at the school. We have a resident pastoral care facilitator, Ali Danch, working with staff, parents, and students with psychology and also with being able to work together in a healthy way. And so activities promoted by the program range from sitting meditation, walking meditation, journaling, breathwork, yoga led by students, one-on-one time with the facilitator, and other grounding opportunities that help us focus and reconnect to our authentic self in a world that is full of distractions and pressures. And the objectives are to offer a place where the whole community can inquire together. And that's the reason we are here today, presenting some results and some observations around the inquiry of certain topics that we've discussed. And to encourage close relationship between students, teachers, and staff, as well close contact between school and home, and open and caring communication throughout the community. Krishnamurti said, "It is becoming more and more important in a world that is destructive and degenerating that there should be a place, an oasis, where one can learn a way of living that is whole, sane, and intelligent. Education in the modern world has been concerned with the cultivation not of intelligence, but of intellect, of memory and its skills. In this process, little occurs beyond the passing information from the teacher to the taught, the leader to the follower, bringing about a superficial and mechanical way of life." And we will talk more about this mechanicity in a little bit. And in this kind of education, there's little of human relationship. And so we have the great privilege to work and to study in a school that values students and teachers and staff learning together. The school is concerned with freedom and order. Freedom is not the expression of one's own desire, choice, or self-interest. That inevitably leads to disorder. Freedom of choice is not freedom, though it may appear so, nor is order, conformity, or imitation. Order can only come with the insight that to choose is in itself the denial of freedom. And here we have some examples of what it looks like, the pastoral care time. We have yoga led by students, journaling, meditation, dialogue. We have dialogue going on for parents, high school students, and staff members, teachers as well. But we also have dialogue around the teachings of Krishnamurti in classrooms, so high school students and parents in the parent education program. We don't approach children with authority. We meet them where they are. We relate to each other as equals. In school, one learns the importance of relationship, which is not based on attachment and possession. It is here one can learn about the movement of thought, love, and death. For all this is our life. From the ancient of times, man has sought something beyond the materialistic world, something immeasurable, something sacred. It is the intent of this school to inquire into this possibility. This whole movement of inquiry into knowledge, into oneself, into the possibility of something beyond knowledge, brings about naturally a psychological revolution. And from this comes inevitably a totally different order in human relationship, which is society. The intelligent understanding of all this can bring about a profound change in the human consciousness. So this comes from the intent of the school. It was written originally by Krishnamurti in 1975 and then revised with the school staff in 1984. And so why are we here? Why are we here at the school, and why are we here today paying attention to the teachings of Krishnamurti? Well, we recognize that there is something that we need to know, feel, become as a society. And this teacher has left us a bolt of wisdom that we can inquire, discover, and like David Moody was saying before, practice for ourselves, be the teaching. First of all, one must inquire into what the religious mind is. Not what religion is, but that quality of the mind and the heart that is religious. One can give a great many meanings to the word religion, depending on one's conditioning, either accepting it emotionally, sentimentally, or devotionally, or totally denying the whole question of a religious attitude, a religious way of life, as a great many people do. One is rather ashamed even to talk about religious matters, but the religious mind has nothing to do with the belief in God. It has no theory, philosophy, or conclusion because it has no fear, and therefore no need for belief. A religious mind is difficult to describe. The description can never be the thing described. But if one is sensitive, aware, and serious, one can feel one's way into it. We could say that a child has a religious mind. We can see very easily the beauty, innocence. They are connected to reality or truth, in a sense. Something that is important for us to explore as serious students, to avoid falling into the trap of dogma. Even Krishnamurti's teachings could be a dogma. So he himself said, the teachings don't belong to the speaker. The teachings are the nature of the mind. And I am grateful to come across such a master that has the ability to warn us about these traps of the mind. There is this thought in pure mathematics. There is this idea that no man can invent a theorem or a number. This phenomena already exists around us. And great minds discover that which already exists in the universal mind. Some examples of this could be the Mozart symphonies, the works of Michelangelo, Raphael. These works are inspired. These works come from the immeasurable. There is a prominent Indian mathematician, Ramanujan, and he said, "An equation means nothing to me unless it expresses a thought of God." I'm really interested by this, the life of this mathematician. He had no formal training in pure mathematics, but he was able to discover theories and equations that are used today, even today. And when people in Cambridge asked him, for example, where do you get all of these? How did you crack the code? He just said, it comes to me. Or it was given to me. In Buddhist thought, for example, we have the concept of the nature of the mind being pure, luminous, vast, empty, and at the same time whole. The nature of the mind is sacred and connected to reality, which infers that in reality everything is sacred. And so we've been hearing about these concepts of religious mind, the sacred, the immeasurable. All of these points into a state of consciousness, a state of mind, and a reality that exists. But the mind, with its thoughts and conclusions, cannot grasp it. We have to discover it, experience it, and only in this way ignite a process of transformation. And why would we want to transform? So once we have an experience, we have tasted from the fountain of pure water of truth. And so we see the urgency of change. This is another key concept of Krishnamurti. When Carl Jung was asked, "Do you believe in God?" his answer was, "I don't believe, I know." And so gives another example of how we can go beyond belief and really experiencing the immeasurable. The religion is a cessation of the me. Have we shared this together? Because it is your life. Not my life, it is your life of sorrow, tragedy, confusion, guilt, reward, punishment. All this is your life. If you're serious, you have tried to untangle all this. You have read some books or followed a teacher or listened to somebody, but the problem remains. These problems will exist as long as the human mind moves within the field of activity of the self. That activity of the self must create more and more and more problems. When you observe, when you become extraordinarily aware of this activity of the self, then the mind becomes extraordinarily quiet, sane, healthy, holy. And from that silence, our life is in everyday activity is transformed. Religion is the cessation of the me, and action born of that silence, that life is a sacred life full of meaning. This came from the book, This Light in Oneself. And so we were hearing about this concept of self-knowledge, inquiry, to know oneself. This was the first principle and the first demand of all psychological schools. We still remember these words, but have lost their meaning. We think that to know ourselves means to know our peculiarities, our desires, tastes, dislikes, likes, capacities, intentions, when in reality it means to know the structure and mechanicity of the mind, its parts, functions, the conditions governing their work, and so on. The means of self-study or self-observation the means of study is self-observation, especially in relation to others, in relationship. It is in relationship that we can see the psyche in a full-length mirror. This is the basis of the teachings of great masters like Socrates, Plato, Gurdjieff, Ouspensky, Krishnamurti, the Dalai Lama. And again, there is an urgency of change. We can see in the world how we need another consciousness, another society, a new way of life, and that's why we need to inquire, and we need to see why it is so important to change. The teachings help us to understand the limitations of the mind and consequently of society. But in addition to ideas, any serious student of the subtle dimensions of the psyche has the right and the duty of exploring life without the process of the mind, peeling away the layers of identity until we recognize our essential nature. Deep within, we are spiritual beings. And so there's something important here that I want to grab from one of the questions before. There was a question regarding method and what to do in order to arrive to this mind. Is it worthwhile to go through the process of practicing something? And so in my personal experience, I see that what is important really is to have an amplified state of consciousness, a different kind of awareness, something that really shakes us and point or teaches us that another kind of consciousness is possible, perhaps glimpses or of ourselves. This could be inner peace that I have never felt before, happiness, joy that doesn't come from pleasure, but like a deep-rooted, that is not coming from the mind, well-being. And so these glimpses of light and truth we see throughout Krishnamurti's life. He had many experiences that are recorded, and I want to share one with you. It's very poetic how he describes these raptures that he had, and we as serious students, we should strive to have these raptures in our life. We should be able to explore the subtleties of the psyche, not with the mind and the concepts and our fear, our attachments, teachings, or authority from others, but really experience truth within ourselves. But what is it then that has perceived and is aware of something totally different from the projections of the mind? Who is it that experiences it? Obviously, it is not the mind of everyday memories, responses, and urges. Is there another mind, or is there a part of the mind which is dormant, to be awakened only by that which is above and beyond all mind? If this is so, then within the mind there is always that which is beyond all thought and time. And yet this cannot be, for it is only speculative thought, and therefore another of the many inventions of the mind. Since that immensity is not born from the process of the mind, then what is it that is aware of it? Is the mind as the experiencer aware of it, or is that immensity aware of itself because there is no experiencer at all? There was no experiencer when this happened, coming down from the mountain, and yet the awareness of the mind was wholly different, in kind as well as in degree, from that which is not measurable. The mind was not functioning, it was alert and passive, and though cognizant of the breeze playing among the leaves, there was no movement of any kind within itself. There was no observer, no measured, who measured the observed. There was only that, and that was aware of itself, without measure. It had no beginning and no word. The mind is aware that it cannot capture by experience and word that which ever abides, timeless and immeasurable. Now, this is debatable, but in ancient...
Could you repeat the last two sentences kind of slowly, because I couldn't quite get it? Thank you.
Sure. The mind was not functioning. It was alert and passive, And though cognizant of the breeze playing among the leaves, there was no movement of any kind within itself. There was no observer who measured the observed. There was only that, and that was aware of itself without measure. It had no beginning and no word. The mind is aware that it cannot capture by experience and word that which ever abides, timeless and immeasurable. So we have, in Indian thought, we have the concept of I am that, Om Tat Sat. And I believe 4 or 5 years ago, we had a discussion around that topic here at the KFA. So to bring about a good society, so now I'm gonna go over a few of the most popular discussions that we've had here at the school. So what we do is each week we post an invitation to parents, teachers, and high school students to join us every Thursday and Friday to go over excerpts of teachings, quotes. We read it aloud, and then we engage in dialogue, in discussion. And over these 2 years, there have been certain topics that are very popular and attract many parents and students and teachers. And one of the most important topics is the usage of our energy that actually we were discussing here earlier. And although these talks were not connected, the same topics are being discussed. To bring about a good society, human beings have to change. You and I must find the energy, the impetus, the vitality to bring about this radical transformation of the mind. And that is not possible if we do not have enough energy. We need a great deal of energy to bring about a change within ourselves. But we waste our energy through conflict, through resistance, through conformity, through acceptance, through obedience. This is a waste of energy when we are trying to conform to the pattern. To conserve energy, we must be aware of ourselves, how we dissipate energy. And this is an age-long problem because most human beings are indolent. They would rather accept, obey, and follow. If we become aware of this indolence, this deep-rooted laziness, and try to quicken the mind and the heart, the intensity of it, again, becomes a conflict, which is also a waste of energy. So it's like walking on a razor's edge. And images are really important as well. We started adding images to the invitations because they spark something else in us, something that the words are missing. Colors, figures, concepts, ideas, symbols. And so we have, this is a children's story, but it is also symbolizing the virtue over vice, the death of the ego, and it's symbolizing the heroic journey of a soul that wants to be free. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the one. So the ego wastes incredible amounts of energy in explosions of hatred, pride, vanity, lust, and so on. So these are not Krishnamurti's words. These are just my exploration. This is my exploration. But everything I study, I have the privilege to have Krishnamurti because it's a good way to put my feet on the ground. So what is the ego? The ego is an illusion, a well-elaborated lie, a cosmic virus that has been encysted in our mind. It is the source of confusion and suffering. I dare to say that the goal of the teachings is to help us realize ourselves without the process of the ego, to experience reality without the filter of the me. In this way, we become trailblazers and forge a new society, starting with myself, my family, my immediate community. Something else that that we have been discussing in the dialogues is we've had a great deal of social movements lately. Governments, different kinds of social movements, unrest. And we bring all of these to our discussions, or people bring these ideas and worries to the discussions. And for me, it's really always a good opportunity to be reminded by Krishnamurti of the importance of thinking about the inner revolution, or the revolution being something internal, not something that we do outwardly, even though great things are being done on the outside, but in essence, we need to change from within, because we are part of humanity. We are part of, our consciousness is part of human consciousness. If we change our consciousness, we are changing and adding on to humanity. So we have a great responsibility for everything that is happening around us. And that is a big thought to consider. So as staff members here at the school, we also have the opportunity to engage with students. We take care of the recess time, and we have a close relationship with students as well. And it's been my pleasure to start a program with one of the teachers. So part of my work as an IT professional is to block unwanted content from the internet, video games, violence, sexual content, etc. And bad digital habits are a growing trend among students on campus and at home. Several teachers have expressed concern and asked for solutions at the level of the network, which we have tried, but the young minds have greater predisposition for the digital environment. As soon as we block certain service, certain game, they would find a workaround. They would find a new tool, a new game, an entertainment hub to consume media. This problem it can become a tendency that creates harmful patterns, disrupting the classroom and the free time at home. And so instead of blocking, instead of putting all of these firewalls, why don't we talk to children? What if we tell them that they are responsible for their brain's health? And so we're bringing some basic neuroscience concepts into the classroom with the goal of sparking interest and awareness into their own internal processes. And so I bring some slides to them as well and ask some questions. Have you ever thought about the psychological traits that define your personality? What is our internal state at any given moment? So we are showing this to 6th and 7th graders. And these are questions that spark a discussion and excitement. How can we most effectively find happiness and inner peace while minimizing our unhappiness and discomfort? This is basic, but it is relevant for us as adults and children. Let's highlight the importance of creating and maintaining a healthy mind by observing our habits, our speech, our relationships, how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, how we eat, how we rest, relax. By looking at this, we gain knowledge of ourselves and have the opportunity to change, to transform that which is not constructive, that which perpetuates or creates conflict. In recent years, modern science has discovered some secrets of the human brain. And at the same time, over centuries, contemplative practices of ancient traditions have unlocked the potential of the mind. The goal of sharing this concept with the youngsters is to foster an awareness of the inner processes that usually happen automatically. By recognizing that we have an inner life, we also become responsible of our experience in this world. And so our limitations are not our parents' fault or the teacher, society, or God. We have a responsibility, and we can undo the conditioning in order to discover ourselves as who we truly are. And I've been showing some data taken from the studies of Richard Davidson, professor of psychology and psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He is a Harvard University graduate, PhD, and has been working for many years, published many articles basically on anxiety, studying anxiety, depression, and they have modern tools and modern science to study these inner states. And when he met the Dalai Lama, he changed gears, he switched gears, because the Dalai Lama asked a simple question. Well, you're studying all of these negative emotions. What if you study positive emotions like compassion, like awareness? And so they embarked on a journey of studying the minds of meditators that have been practicing for 40 years. And the results were astonishing. And something that I bring to the students from, it's a big study, but some key points are happiness is a skill. It's not something that someone has to give us. Not the government, not the teachers or our parents, or the things that we want to purchase, or the video game, but it is something that we have to build. We have to create an environment where happiness can flourish. And so neuroscience has proven that each thought and emotion produces a pattern, a subtle energetic mark in our psyche. And so we feel we get habituated to these explosions of hatred, of anger, of wanting entertainment. We can say that many of our illnesses also arise from improper mentation or improper use of our mind. Our personality gets molded and our character is created by an invisible architect. Each emotion, thought, desire, and its fulfillment triggers a chemical reaction in our brain. A cocktail of substances rushes through our neurons, producing elation, euphoria, pleasure, disgust, sadness, rage, depression, boredom, etc. And if we are repeating these patterns all over and over again, our mind becomes, it has a character, it becomes something. And so what we want to do is we want to undo those avenues, and we want to create constructive ways of being. Happiness is a skill. It depends on our ability to create favorable conditions for feelings of joy, well-being, and happiness to flourish and get sustained. The responsibility is ours. Effort, attention, study, and wisdom are necessary. So part of my exploration into the teachings of Krishnamurti has led me to a question, just like the young lady had here. So what if I want to practice meditation? What if I need to practice breath work? What if I need to search for enlightenment? And so the answer that I received is to study the two truths in Buddhism. They have this concept of the conventional truth and ultimate truth. So for now, as we speak with a group, we can postulate that something is true and real, and we can engage in it. But eventually, there will be another ultimate truth that washes away the first truth. And so this helped me a lot because I was feeling stuck. And so it's not that Krishnamurti is wrong or Buddhist thought is wrong, is that we have to see this from our heart, not from the mind. The mind gets confused, but in the heart there's light, there's wisdom. We usually point, if you ask me, where is intelligence? Where is awareness? Where is consciousness? We, as Westerners, we would point to the head, but in reality, it's different. It's not only in the head, but in the heart. So we're going to continue to explore some of the teachings that have been popular in these 2 years of exploration. Have you ever sat very quietly with closed eyes and watched the movement of your own thinking? Have you watched your mind working, or rather, Has your mind watched itself in operation just to see what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, how you look at the trees, at the flowers, at the birds, at people, how you respond to a suggestion or react to a new idea? Have you ever done this? If you have not, you are missing a great deal. To know one's own mind, to know how one's mind works, is a basic purpose of education. If you don't know how your mind reacts, if your mind is not aware of its own activities, you will never find out what society is. You may read books on sociology, study social sciences, but if you don't know how your own mind works, you cannot actually understand what society is. This came from Think on These Things, writings dedicated to youngsters. Are there any questions so far? Any comments? How necessary it is for the mind to purge itself from all thought, to be constantly empty, not made empty, but simply empty, to die to all thought, to all of yesterday's memories, and to the coming hour. It is simple to die, and it is hard to continue, for continuity is effort, to be or not to be. Effort is desire, and desire can die only when the mind ceases to acquire. How simple it is just to live. Something beautiful about the teachings as well is that engaging in the teachings as a community builds our relationships. So if there is something that happens during a dialogue, if we are all sensitive and aware, if we are all trying to listen instead of rushing into a response, rushing into a reaction, if we are just listening to the other person, and if everyone else in the circle engages in the same practice, there's something special about the dialogue. There's a special energy, a special bond that happens. This is my experience. And it is my experience also to remind myself every time to just listen. And it is not an easy task. The mind is always bringing up a response. It's always cooking up the next interaction. It's always interfering with what is and with the person next to me that is sharing. And so how easy and how difficult at the same time it is to listen, really, without the mind projecting. And so it is my experience that dialogue can actually, you can feel a special bond with others. Something important that we've been discussing is the idea of communication and words, and the importance of acknowledging that the words are not the thing. And there's a beautiful quote: "We live by words, and words become our prison. Words are necessary to communicate, but the word is never the thing. The actual is not the word, but the word becomes all important when it has taken the place of that which is. You may observe this phenomenon when the description, the symbol we worship, the shadow we follow, the illusion we cling to has become the reality instead of the thing itself. Words, the language, shape our reactions. Language becomes the compelling force and brings our minds, and our minds are shaped and controlled by the word." Excerpt taken from The Whole Movement of Life is Learning. So again, this is just like showing us the great responsibility that we have every day. So what can I do right now for the world? Well, I'm going to take care of what I say to people. I'm going to take care of the intentions behind my words. I'm going to take care of how people are feeling around me. Are people feeling happy around me, or stressed, or angst? How are people feeling around me? And so acknowledging that and actually changing the simplest of things is really hard, but it is our responsibility. And this is how we start a revolution in society, by changing the individual, the family, the school, the community, and so on. Are we different, each one of us, from the world outside of us? Are you as British or French or American, Russian, or whatever nationality or group to which one belongs, or Indian? Are we the rest of humanity or separate individuals, struggling separate souls, each one seeking his own fulfillment, his own happiness, his own salvation, identifying himself with something noble, illusory, imaginary, and so on? Are we living in isolation on this earth? Each one of us isolated, perhaps from the rest of mankind? And this separation, this so-called individualism, might be one of the causes why human beings do not live at peace, either in their relationships or with his neighbor, who might be next door or 1,000 miles away. This was taken from a talk given at Brockwood Park in England on 1983. And so the theme for this year is, in the school, has been looking at the relationships. And it's a great opportunity for us to explore ourselves when we are with others. It would be easy to go into isolation, to the cave, meditate, be by myself. But how hard it is to know my mind, to see the reactions when I'm with others, with my peers, with my wife, with my family. And so this is the opportunity that we have as people that have been acquainted with the teachings, people that have had a realization that this is good. We have the responsibility to see ourselves when we are relating to others. So how about we take some questions from the audience online or here, if there are any questions or comments? Yes.
I came in a bit late, but how did you,
Oh, hold on 1 second, please. We need a mic.
I'm curious. I've never thought as an IT person they would have these kinds of insights and bring these other ways of looking at things to that position. And I'm curious to know how you came to have this approach.
Well, yeah, I am lucky to have landed in Ojai and to have walked the KFA. And when I was in college, I wanted to be a musician, but my parents really pushed me to study something that I can work with. And I was rebellious and I didn't agree with them, and I had a great deal of pain and suffering. But then over the years, I found out that it was a blessing to have something that I can work with, that I can help institutions like Krishnamurti schools or the KFA. And that is the way I make money, I guess, and I work. But my main inspiration is to study about my consciousness, to study the possibilities of our freedom. And I study with the school. We study transpersonal psychology. And this is how I got to know about teachings. And then really it's me being lucky and being working at the cafe as in the same position, IT coordinator, and being immersed with the teachings, and then having the opportunity to step out for a break. And I am in East End, Ojai, having read the teachings, and then by myself in the immensity of the sky. And so really, it's a great opportunity and privilege to be here. We are enjoying peace, we are enjoying friendship, and we are able to talk about teachings. And this is not so in many places of the world where suffering is going on, and streets are closing, and so on and so forth. So Ojai has been a catalyst.
Hi. Okay, so if you were going to try and condense this into like an after-school program of some kind that would last about 2 hours, what do you think would be the most important things to focus on? Thank you.
So really the experience of the mind without the self, a transpersonal experience, an amplified state of consciousness, a session with an intention to really experience ourselves without the mind. And so this is not something that only the Buddha could do or Krishnamurti could do. Now, here and now, we can do this. We can engage in this kind of. I know the word practice is tricky, but we can engage in this kind of search. And so I would say a breathwork session with students or adults it always brings something that you cannot make up, something that your own being is trying to tell you. Symbols, teachings, something that happened in your past that is trying to tell you what to change, what to observe. And so all of these experiences can happen in an amplified state of consciousness. And for ancient traditions all over the world have had techniques to explore these subtleties. We have meditation, dancing, yoga. There is a lot of weeds around the consciousness, but there's also nectar. And so we need to cut the weeds and get to the core of the flower, of the nectar. And students have, or we have, as adults, we have the responsibility to show students an alternative, because the world is showing students how it's going to be. This is the way it is. The system works like this, and it's being offered all the time. And so we need to find another way, a different kind of society, and show something different to our children. And again, Ojai, this little bubble, is the perfect place where we can do this experiment. Actually, that's why we have these institutions here. That's why we have the Theosophists and Krishnamurti here, because it checks all the boxes. So we can do this here and now.
Hi, I'm also someone who works in IT, and I'm really curious to hear, kind of expanding on your question before, what the intersection of like the teachings and kind of the work that's being done here and modern technology and kind of where we're at today. I know that you were talking briefly about how you were using some firewalls and things like that to help to sort of protect the students here from some of the more titillating or some of the more abusive parts that we see online. But then there's also the aspect of like, we have the internet that's like bringing cultures together around the world. Could you talk about a little bit about, in your opinion, what are maybe some of the good and the bad happening in technology, and how it applies to kind of raising consciousness in this sense?
Yeah, so some of the good things is that technology engages the mind of the young people, of young generations. I attended a coding class that happens here at the school, and you can see the spark in kids in their eyes when they solve a problem, when they write a piece of code and then something happens. You can see the joy in that. But we can utilize that light to show them how you can hack your own mind. Because if you control the concepts of technology, it's very, very useful to use these concepts to our own awakening. And so we can reprogram our life. We can hack our brain and actually improve how we feel, how we speak, how we act. There's also, and so I would say the positive thing is that we can take on the concepts of technology and use them to our own self-exploration. There's also the system is always programming us in a certain way. What we consume, what we buy. We were listening to the presentation this morning. We are being programmed day and night. And so we really need an antivirus. We need to know how to go in there and deprogram what is being done already. Even if you shut down your phone or you try to have limits, culture is pouring into your eyes, into your ears. And so we need a way to every day, every night, install the antivirus and really come back to my true self. And obviously, the bad thing is how technology is controlling the way we think, we consume, we act. Experts have studied that many social media platforms they act like a gambling machine. So you keep scrolling, and then you get a burst of something is going to happen, adrenaline rush, and so you get hooked to that. And so now it's a chemical addiction, and it's physical now. It's not just the mind, but now it's something that your brain needs, that chemical reaction. And so if we share this with students, they're going to realize the importance. Oh, okay, I'm gonna stop scrolling because this is not good, or I'm gonna stop this music with violence and with hatred, right? And I'm gonna do something else because this is actually hurting me.
Thanks, Jaime. So I'm representing our online audience, and I have a question here. And this question pertains sort of to Oak Grove and the activities overall, and maybe to what you started with. So how do your students guide or influence your teaching methods and methods of exploration year to year?
So the students have a voice here, and they are always trying to put forward suggestions for the school. And so the leaders here do a great job in discerning what is possible, what is not. But I think it's important, this relationship that we have with the children. It's not an authoritarian relationship, but more like a friendship. I don't know if you know this, but they don't say, hey, hi, Mr. Flores, Mr. Corey. We engage with each other by the first name. And so it's really alternative education. And I cannot speak of what the teachers do. It's a great deal of thought that goes behind the method. But what my experience is that there's a great deal of relationship building and friendship and warm-heartedness. And I think that's a key opportunity for us to really be able to sow seeds of awakening.
Hey, Jaime. A question. Some of what I heard you say had like a little feel of positive psychology in it to me. And then I also saw you bringing up as well Krishnamurti and inquiry. And I wondered about how you address, so I guess my question is, I saw a lot of like how to create happiness or create safety. And create, friendships so we can share and look at, inquire together, which I think is very important. How do you deal with things that revolve around like the movement of fear with students and also with their parents, I suppose, and the staff? How do you, and where is it appropriate to look at those questions? Like I imagine there's a certain age where it's not appropriate, but then, like in the high school, does it become appropriate to look at things like some of the gritty stuff in terms of fear or being on the outside of a group, or how might you address some of those parts of, human consciousness?
Yeah, you would be surprised at the level of the students' recognition of these aspects is really vast, especially in high school. they are already talking about psychology, and they are already discussing this with their families and with the school. Now, this is a really sensitive area because a relationship with the students means a relationship with the parents. And obviously, there will be points of conflict because we won't agree on everything, how things are done. So it's a great dance. And there's a lot that happens with the head of school and the pastoral care time facilitator and teachers. There's a great deal of facilitation that happens, but you have to be sensitive and aware of all the subtleties of the relationships and families. Now, from my research into today's presentation, something that Krishnamurti was trying to do is create a family unit. What if you create a different child, but at home they are no different? You would create conflict. And so that's why we bring parents and community members to have the same exploration together so that we don't have that conflict.
Just to combine, I'm in the IT field, right? And I'm an ex-Rishi Valley student. Siddharth sir was my teacher as well and housemaster. And I have 2 kids, right? So the internet is what you cannot do away with it, right? So the way I deal with it more is you expose it to them, like what you've done here. You said that, which is they have to take the responsibility to understand what is okay and what is not okay, right? And if you don't do it now, because now you have the opportunity of, if they do make a mistake, to correct them and and make them understand why it's wrong, right? The other thing that for me is when I did get married, it was very difficult to understand for my wife why I wanted my own time, right? Because, okay, we're married, we should be together forever. But it's the same concept which I'm trying to tell my kids. If you want to stay away from me for about 5-10 minutes, okay, fine. Go, just think whatever you want to do, and then you come back and let me know what it is that you were thinking about. Whether you were happy with me, you're angry with me, you're upset at school. What is it that you wanted that time for, and what is the outcome of that? Right? That freedom of thought is kind of what I've kind of learned more, and then trying to make my kids make sure that, okay, you can think outside the box. You don't have to comply with what your friends are doing or saying. Right? The other thing we're doing, or what I've learned, is it's okay to not agree with your teachers as well. Not necessary, because that then puts you on a thought where this is right, according to what the teacher said, which you don't necessarily have to agree as long as you're okay with it. Right?
Yes, that's right. When I was showing this presentation to kids, the part about neuroscience, a couple youngsters would ask questions, and they wouldn't be in agreement with happiness is a skill. And they were like, but what if something does something to you and makes you sad? And so right then and then, she didn't understand. She was fighting this idea, this concept, but I have the opportunity to build a relationship with her. And over time, perhaps a year, 2 years, she will come around and she will understand that there is something here, there is light in this statement. And I don't have children myself, but I have a brother, a sister, a niece. And I know how important it is for us to share and to explore new ways of sharing the teachings. And a great opportunity that we have today is that modern science has been building a bridge between old psychological schools, contemplative practice, and modern science. So studies are being done, and things are being proven concepts are being proven. And so this is not a religion anymore. This is not a dogma. This is not something that you have to believe, but this is something that we can see results. We can make an assessment, and we can utilize concepts, scientific concepts, to the awakening of our consciousness. So that is a great opportunity that we have, and something that young minds can really understand. So that's it from my side, if there's no other question. Oh.
There's a few more from online. So let's see, this one here. Have you tracked how students live in the world post-education? Is there a way to determine that self-understanding enables them to live a harmonious life that is in an order with the inner and outer?
Well, again, I'm the IT guy, but I do have a glimpse of children's lives, family life. That's because we have the opportunity here of being as an adult here. You're part of the learning process, and so there's a lot to be said and done. And I encourage you to visit the school and live for yourself. And I'm sure that there are other people that can talk about this. We have the Spanish teacher here that has lots of experience with children. So, thank you. And lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge the teachers and guides, gratitude to them, because they inspire my own exploration. So thank you, everyone.